Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So today we're going to talk about numerous items that it would make sense to stockpile in preparation for a long-term grid down situation. So let's get to it. So ideally, a prepper should never have to trade or barter for anything. The idea is that you have everything you need on hand before disaster strikes. That said, supplies inevitably run out, and sometimes faster than expected. Therefore, having redundant supplies on hand is always useful. But the main reason that you're going to want items for trade is not simply to trade those for other goods, rather to trade them for services. There may be specific work that you need done. There may be a person in your community that has knowledge of medicine, plumbing, carpentry, dentistry, and you may be in need of their services, and as money in one of these situations probably isn't going to be too valuable, the only other option then is to provide them something in trade. Another barter situation which is likely to arise will be you trading your non-renewable resource which required the grid to create, and trading that for a renewable resource. So somebody who went out and caught fresh fish, grew some fresh produce, or cut you some firewood. And this works both ways, of course, in that you can barter your own skills and services, as well as your own renewable energy sources. The things I'm going to talk about today aren't things that preppers typically store in large quantities, but they'll always provide some utility for you, even if you do not barter with them. It's interesting to note that as a grid down situation progresses, the evolution of our monetary system will be reversed. For instance, when debit machines stop working, people will revert to trading with physical cash. When cash is no longer deemed to have any value, people may revert to trading in precious metals. If the situation gets so desperate that even precious metals have no value, then people will revert to ultimately trading for goods and services. Now, as is the case in all post-disaster interactions, you have to remain very vigilant, and there's definitely security risks to consider when it comes to trade and barter. Your primary course of action should always be to rely on what you have before having to solicit others for goods or services. It should go without saying that if a situation was so desperate that a person wanted to barter with you for your ammunition, then for obvious reasons that should be a big no-no. Anyone you would trust enough to provide ammunition for services is likely going to be somebody who's close enough to you that you would give it to them for free, like a close family member or a lifelong friend, because in that case, their security would mean your security. Now, in my opinion, the items that you would store for the primary purpose of trade and barter should fulfill the following criteria. It should be something that's portable, because nobody wants to lug a 30-pound bucket of rice into town. It should be something which has a high value to density ratio. It should be something that will have a near indefinite shelf life. It should be something that fulfills a vital need. It should be something that you can use yourself in such case that you didn't barter it. The one exception to this may be cigarettes, because as far as I know, 1 in 5 people still smoke. So there's a good chance the people you'll come across will be smokers, and because of the nature of addiction, you'll likely get a good trade in your favor. But aside cigarettes, there's nothing I would stockpile that I wouldn't use myself, maybe with the exception of feminine hygiene products. And lastly, it should be something that is cost effective. The majority of your prepping investment is going to be for your primary items, be it food, water, shelter, medical, ammunition, that sort of thing. Now, one of the first items is bug spray. Without all the creature comforts of the grid, people are going to be forced outside to do work, and thus they're going to have to interact with nature. DEET was a chemical which was invented by the US military after World War II to help their soldiers cope with jungle warfare conditions. Now, although DEET is a potentially toxic substance and possible carcinogen, in a crap hits the fan situation, that's going to be the last thing you're thinking about when you're in a bug out situation and you're being chewed alive by mosquitoes. This is especially important to avoid insect-borne diseases like Lyme disease from ticks. So this fulfills all of the criteria. It's portable, it lasts forever, it's going to be very rare, it's going to fulfill a vital need in a crap hits the fan situation, and it's relatively cost effective if you buy it right now. When I used to tree plant up in northern Canada, there are First Nations people who are able to not use bug spray. But everybody else who came from the city was dousing themselves in that stuff, because that's the only way, next to getting really dirty and having an inch thick of dirt on your skin to protect you from the insects, that you're going to avoid getting your butt chewed off. I would store the pump version and not the aerosol, even though it is a bit more expensive. The aerosol tends to waste a lot when you spray it, and the inner workings of aerosol canisters are likely to break down over time. But the federal government claims that DEET is very stable and is effective indefinitely as a repellent, and for this reason expiration dates are not required on product labels. The next thing is electricity. Many people are going to want to charge their devices in a grid down situation, and most of them are not going to have the means to do so. If you have a power supply, especially a renewable one, this is a way for you to generate a passive form of post-collapse income by plugging people into your solar grid. The next thing is fire. People take for granted the abundant ways there are to light fires nowadays. The fact is, matches and lighter fluid are probably going to run out a lot faster than people think, because you're going to be using them a lot more than you did when the grid was up, especially if your life depends on the frequent use of fire to cook your food or to heat yourself. The most long-lasting and durable fire starters are going to be ferrocerium rods and magnesium strikers. But the fact is, not everybody is going to know how to use them, and many, no matter how bad the situation gets, are still going to appreciate the convenience of a match or a lighter. Having extra matches and lighters on hand is certainly not a bad idea. The next thing is soap or general hygiene products. Hygiene will be of utmost importance in a crap hits the fan scenario. The threat of waterborne pathogens and general illness as a result of lowered immunity and the stress of the situation is going to require people to more diligently focus on their hygiene in order to avoid contracting some sort of disease. Soap bars with very limited additives, like many other things on this list, will likely last a long time, especially if they are vacuum sealed in plastic or mylar bags. Up next is candles. Most people forget that light is only a luxury that's been enjoyed in the last 150 years. The light bulb literally brought humanity out of the Dark Ages. Candles not only provide light, but they also provide heat. Up next is a more common item that preppers talk about storing, and that's toilet paper. I would go a step further to encourage people to store some toilet paper tablets, namely because they are more portable and they're more easily transportable, so they have a higher value per density ratio. Everybody's going to need to do their business in a grid down situation, and once all their old dirty rags and paper towels and there's no corn cobs, dry grass or bidets in sight, people will see the value in having a way to wipe their butts. Up next are nails, screws, and various adhesives, tapes, things which bind things together. Whether it's fortifying a home, creating a new structure, or doing some sort of makeshift repairs, these items will be a hot commodity post-grid down. Up next is something that you're probably going to have on hand already if you're a prepper, and that is sugar. It's likely never going to go bad, and everybody is going to want it. Store it. Similarly, for the better part of civilization, salt has been one of the most sought-after commodities of humankind, so much so that it was used as currency in the Roman era and ancient times. Not everybody lives by an ocean, and thus salt is going to be a hot commodity, especially to make everything palatable, which you're going to have to eat in a grid down situation, which likely is going to be subpar compared to what you're used to. This next edible item may prove to be the gold standard during a prolonged grid down event. Honey is one of those rare jewels that nature provides that everybody is going to want, whether for its medical or edible uses, or just the ability to boost the morale of people who consume it. Honey will be a hot commodity post-collapse. Next is going to be sandbags. I would suggest going with the polypropylene sandbags over the burlap. Because burlap is an organic fabric, it is likely to degrade over time, whereas the synthetic polypropylene sandbags will maintain their durability and continue to be able to haul heavy materials. They can be used for home fortifications. Sandbags will stop high caliber rounds, and of course for flood protection, and I'm sure there's a variety of other uses that people could think of just to have a strong, durable bag. Now you may also want to consider storing more plastic bags, and I hinted at this in my last video, because the disposal of trash and excrement or whatever it is in a crap hits the fan scenario, you're going to quickly see the supplies of plastic bags diminished, and they're suddenly going to become a sought after commodity. So the more you have on hand, the better. Next is going to be fishing tackle, namely fishing line, because there's many ways that you can craft fishing lures, but it's very hard to replicate fishing line using natural materials. So I don't think you can ever go wrong storing fishing line and general fishing supplies. The same goes with hunting supplies. Up next is going to be socks and underwear. You can bet your bottom dollar that in all of those post-apocalyptic movies where, 10 years has passed, that nobody is wearing socks and underwear after that time, because as we all know, socks barely last a month unless you're getting like darn tough socks or something like that, which will last you a couple years maybe, or some good polypropylene synthetic material antimicrobial underwear. Then chances are it's not going to last that long, and people are going to require that in order to maintain good health and hygiene. So you can never go wrong storing socks and underwear. Next is going to be freeze-dried food. The reason why freeze-dried food is so great, because you can never store enough of it because you can always eat it. It comes in smaller packages, factory sealed, so people know exactly what they're getting when you trade it with them. They know that the food isn't bad. They know that the food is not poison. Unlike food that you would make yourself to barter with, there's a lot more assurance in trading something which is factory made and sealed than there is with something that you yourself made. These are far more ideal than MREs because they last a lot longer. And this is a win-win all around, because unlike a lot of other survival foods, quality freeze-dried food is something you're going to eat just as much when the grid is up as when the grid is down, and I can attest to this because I eat this stuff every other day. And lastly, this one is some people's favorite, alcohol. It's going to last darn near forever, and everybody is going to want it for different reasons after a grid down event. Let me know in the comment section if you have any ideas for rare or offbeat items that you would stockpile in preparation for a prolonged grid down event. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and see the links in the description if you want any of these items that were discussed in this video. Thanks for watching Canadian Preppero. The best way to support this YouTube channel is to support yourself by gearing up through CanadianPreparedness.com or BugoutRoll.ca. Premium quality gear at the best possible price using the incredibly secure and easy to use Shopify platform. We offer free shipping to the United States for orders over $200 USD and free shipping to Canada over $75. So support the channel by supporting yourself.